interrupting you.
Oh, no. Tim.
We are now live. We are at 7:30, so should we call ourselves to order here? So I have been told that we do not need to read the remote meeting piece, and so I'm not going to do that. We'll just go straight and do our roll call. All right, so Ms. Luttrell.
Here.
Mr. Martell has just dropped. Mr. Palmer.
Here.
Ms. Rubenstein.
Here.
Mr. Schoner. Doesn't look like he is here yet. Okay, and Mr. Wood.
Here.
And I, Andrea Hamilton, I'm here. So we do have a quorum, so we can begin. Hold on, I see a hand up in the attendees. Okay, Tony's in attendees. So let me see. I'm going to promote him to panelist. Okay, Tony, you should be promoted. All right, so Tony, let me try you again. Mr. Schoner.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
All right. Okay, so before we get started, can I have a volunteer to take notes this week? Anne's done it the last couple, so if I've got a different volunteer.
Sure, I'll do it.
Thanks, Mimi. All right. So let me start. I'm just going to pop up our agenda. So there's a lot on it, and I think we can get through the first stuff pretty quickly. So can you let me know if my screen is sharing here?
It is.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to run through, we're going to talk about dates for when we'll present our recommendations to the select board. I sent an email around. There's just been some questions about kind of when we'll be able to present, because I guess the March 1 date is an arbitrary date, but there is some feeling that the select board needs some time to do their own internal deliberation. So we've said we should, I have suggested that we just present dates to them and say basically what we can do. So I think that's a pretty quick discussion based on our previous schedule we came up with. We'll do a review of the fund request log. Again, I don't think this is not meant to be an in-depth discussion, just a review of where we are now. We're still getting requests in, and so I don't think we're ready to start really talking about anything, but just to kind of note where we're at. And then this is taking us back into sort of finalizing out our overall committee strategy. So a review of the organizations that have been contacted. This should be pretty quick. Then I think getting into the meat of it is the community outreach piece. I think we spent a good amount of time on the community surveys because that's what's coming up quickly for us. And then the evaluation criteria piece here, which will be good to start talking about today, but I think is not as critical as making sure we've really got a good handle on the community outreach, the community surveys, because those are the things that are really going to come up on us fast. And then our next steps, administrative business, unfinished business, public comment, and making sure we're clear on our next meeting. So good. Let's jump into the discussion for the dates for the select board recommendation. So again, I'd sent around an email that we got back. Mimi had actually spoken to Lisa, and there was a sort of a subsequent back and forth email around that. Why won't my slide go over to my next screen? Mimi, do you want to give like the 30-second synopsis of your discussion and the subsequent sort of email exchange?
Sure. So after the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion on this 3/1 date, and it was determined by some on this committee that that wasn't necessary to report to the selectmen by that particular date. And then when I was talking to Lisa, she said that who's the chair of the select board, said that they did need to hear back from that date. So then reached out to Brian Ballantyne, who gave a little explanation that although it's not a set in stone date, only the select board can change that date, and they need to review things before town meeting, and they need ample time in order to review and discuss. So I think that's
Yeah,
that. Did I leave
that's-
anything out?
No, that all sounds right to me. I mean, did anyone have any questions on that thread itself? If not, I'd suggest we basically just let's pick our dates and then let's propose them back, right? I mean, we're going to be able to do what we're going to be able to do based on kind of what we've laid out here. And if something is needed on a different timeline, then that's just not something that we are currently set up to provide, right? This is my sense. So let me pop this up. So this is what we had discussed in our last call, or the call 2 weeks ago, regarding the schedule. Am I sharing a slide right now? Yes. Okay. So basically we had backtracked, right, that we had this committed deadline for May 16th for the full fund suggestions. There's this intermediate March 1 for things that impact the general budget. We have basically activities going until March 25th, right? In terms of soliciting public feedback and getting in all of our requests. And then we've got this 7 weeks for deliberation and report, which brings us to May 16th. So I guess my question to the committee is, are we basically saying that we will present all of our findings on the 16th, and that is just, or in shortly prior to the 16th, and that's just kind of what the timeline is? Or do we think 7 weeks for deliberation and report is long, or we could have an intermediate step where we do some sort of a report out, even if we don't have the full report complete at that time? I don't know, thoughts or opinions. Anne, I see your hand up. Ms. Rubenstein.
When I spoke with Matt Probst at the Technology Committee, he said he could send our survey out whenever we're ready, but he recommended that we piggyback on top of the town survey because he said that people are getting survey fatigue. I know I got 2 just this week. He said that he could send out that survey and put us at the top. And he could do it as soon as we wanted. We talked about doing a sample survey. He could do it so we could decide what style we want, and he suggested 5 questions as the maximum. We could move our survey up a little bit, maybe a week, and maybe just do it for a week. I don't know. That way we'd have a little more time and we could get to the selectmen before the beginning of May.
And what it would, so the town survey, do we have a date for when that's supposed to come out? Or is it's ready to go and it's just whether or not we want to add our stuff to it?
Basically, yes, he said he's pretty much ready to go. It's almost the same as last year. But he said what he would do is he'd have a table of contents. It'd be 3 sections. One would be us, one would be their big long survey, and one would be a demographic survey option. And then he would just send it out to all the people that they sent it out very successfully to last year. And I have a whole list of that. And, you know, basically when we're ready, he'd be willing to do that.
Okay. Mr. Palmer?
If I know that we talked about tax relief in the last meeting, John brought up some good numbers. If we wanted to get back to the select board about tax relief for this particular cycle and get back to them quickly, we could pick at least 1 or 2 very convenient items, like the 400,000 that goes into the road budget. That's a significant number that goes in every year. We could cover that plus maybe 1 other item, and maybe that we know are going to be know they're going to be passed and know they're going to be in the budget. And that would help to maybe address some of the tax relief issues that we talked about in the last meeting. So.
And sort of propose that as an intermediate. Mrs. Luttrell?
So that was my question. If we wait till after town meeting, if we can still fund some things for in this budget cycle. Like the senior center, which has come up a few times, or
So the senior center, my understanding, is not currently in the budget for this year. So I don't think anything that we have received proposals for right now is currently in the town, but isn't what we will vote for on the warrant. And so this, any spending that's come in as a request would be in addition to spending that we would approve in town meeting, right? And so this would be, are we moving something out of the warrant to provide tax relief? And I believe May 16th still puts us ahead of town meeting, right? So we don't know, when's town meeting?
May
I
4th.
thought it was, yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is, all right, so if we want to propose tax relief, it has to be before May 4th, because otherwise we won't get it into this budget cycle. Right?
Well, more appropriately, it has to make it into the warrant, which is also frozen 30 days before town meeting. And if you want to have it inserted, then we have to get it through the select board to get it inserted, because they're the only body, I believe, that can insert it directly into the warrant. So we need to give them enough ahead of time notice to just at least directly put it in.
So if I look at what that means, so 30 days before town meeting, and town meeting is on the 4th, we said?
Anything comes out of my mouth, let's check it twice with somebody else before we take it as gospel.
All right. Well, if I'm looking roughly right, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That takes me back to April 6th, so April 4. So really, so it has to be before April. And we're basically saying right now that we would have kind of our public feedback in late March. I mean, does that give us sufficient time? I mean, and I think to Anne's point, sounds like we might be able to tighten up the survey timeline a little bit. But, does that give us sufficient time to be able to go and say before the end of March, we recommend this tax relief? I mean, I guess, I don't know, do we want to recommend tax relief outside of balancing it against the rest of the requests, right? I mean, and without having public feedback, I think is basically what we're trying to ask here. Mr. Palmer?
You could ask me today about funding that $400,000 and I would say yes. It goes in the budget every year. It's a worthy amount for us to cover. We could do that for 3 years straight and give a portion of sort of tax relief, at least to the entire town. And that would only cover a third of the money that we have. And I think there's plenty of money left, for us to be doing lots of these other things that we want to do and that should be done. But like I said, that's a low hanging fruit for us. I think if you just said we can do the 400,000 this year and then we can talk about what we want to add in the next, month or two.
Okay. Mr. Wood?
I just want to echo Mr. Palmer's statement on that. I would vote for that as well tonight for tax relief.
For the 400 against the roads.
Yeah, I'd do
Which I
400.
think
I'd
is-
actually go up to 500 because that would put us with their 300 that the select board is using from their funds. That would put us at a little over the 800, which would put us down to 4.99 tax rate, which is still high, but it again, that would be about a $200 savings per resident.
Ms. Rubenstein?
It seems reasonable to me that we could make that partial commitment, but also couch it in the terms that we have not considered all requests. There will be other requests coming or other recommendations coming.
Would it make sense to recommend it as sort of a tentative request with the backing that it would be part of this survey and we'll have sort of a more formal understanding of if that's what we want, what town residents want before the end of March, which still gives the select board time if for some reason everyone says no tax relief, which I don't know, doesn't seem likely, but maybe. they could opt to not do it. Mr. Schoner?
Yeah, I just wanted to also voice my opinion here. I think it'd be perfectly reasonable for this committee to recommend, tonight, to vote tonight, to say to the select board that we want to allocate $500,000 to try to reduce the tax rate. That seems like a perfectly reasonable and timely thing to decide tonight.
So the proposal would be to allocate $500,000 from ARPA money towards unspecified items on the warrant, right? That's an accounting question. It sounds like the roads is an easy one to pick off, but we don't have an opinion, right? It's just to be applied to the overall warrant as a tax relief measure this year. Because that
Yeah.
brings us down to under the 5% tax rate, which we have some understanding is a general goal, because that reduction brings meaningful relief to the taxpayer.
That makes sense to me. And then we still have time after, more public feedback and more deliberation to make other recommendations, but, to immediately save everyone in town some money seems like a good first step.
Okay. Is that something we'd feel comfortable bringing to a vote? Is there more discussion we'd like to have on it? Do we want to wait toward the end of the meeting? Any thoughts on that? I'm happy to bring it to a vote now if this is something folks feel comfortable on.
I'm comfortable. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to put it as a motion.
All right.
Are we putting it at an amount of 5,000? I guess to your point, John, are we putting it as an amount of 500,000? Are we putting it as to try commit to a percentage lower than 5%? Or are we going to pick, say, roads as a specific? I guess
be
that I
comfortable
agree
with-
with John.
I'd be
know.
comfortable with 500,000. I just don't know if how to put it in as specific. I don't want not that anybody would do this, but I don't want it to be like, oh, we just got an extra $500,000 in our budget. Now let's add this, and this kind of thing. So
Would people be comfortable with committing the 400,000 tonight? And then as a committee, we could also endorse to the select board that we're willing to do more. Because the 400,000 would actually fix it on that road item. And so therefore we're committing to that amount and it's strictly tied to that. And so therefore it wouldn't allow people to go.
I mean, again, my understanding here, all we're doing is recommending, right?
Right. You're right,
So-
Tony. You're right, Tony.
So we're recommending, and so I like, I think what you're saying, Joe, makes sense, right? I mean, I personally like the round number of $500,000, but if it was 400 to start, or if we could find another thing where on the current town warrant that was, another expense like that was 100 grand or so that we could just recommend, hey, let's, we recommend that this be knocked off, then I think the select board could act accordingly.
I think,
It just seems like
Okay,
it's
go
a good thing for everyone in town, given the challenges of the last 2 years, to try to save everyone some money. So so now, as you were saying, John, I mean, how do we articulate this in a motion?
I still haven't figured it out. But Mr. Palmer is usually pretty good at that.
Thanks. That gave me a good laugh.
Is
I
it,
know
is it
sidewalks-
enough for us
sidewalks have been really
is it
popular.
enough for us to- I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, go ahead, Tony. Keep going. You're making
I
sense.
was gonna say, I mean, I have no idea how this works and we're a new committee, but is it enough for us to say to the select board, we recommend, our first recommendation is that $500,000 be used to offset expenses that are currently planned to be on the town warrant?
I mean, we have town accountants, right? Like they can figure out how to do it. Yeah.
We have no authority here. All we're doing is recommending, and then, right? So might that be sufficient for them? I have no idea, but maybe it would be. But Joe, you have more experience here than I do for sure. So, and others here also, right, John? And so whatever you guys think.
Is there any benefit to tying it to the number and the percentage to avoid the, we don't want to add extra stuff? So making language like we recommend $500,000 to bring the rate under 5%.
It just feels to me that that then introduces potential uncertainty based on how various votes happen at the town meeting. So,
Hmm.
but again, I like things to be simple, so
Simple.
that's just kind of my predisposition. So, I will stop talking now.
Mr. Palmer,
I'd like to make a motion that the ARPA committee endorse the spending of $400,000 to cover the roads portion that is dedicated every year and under the budget for tax relief purposes. Not that it will limit us in the future, but that at the moment, that seems to be an easy number for us to knock off, and we can work towards other goals at another time.
is it a flat 400?
That's what my motion is. We can open it for discussion after.
But is the actual roads budget a flat 400?
It's
Like,
usually a
it's not-
flat 400. It's usually a 400 that goes in every year. If it turns out to be 5 in this year, we can change it to after the fact.
I second the motion.
And if people want to discuss and change it to a 500 figure just to throw it in there, that's fine. But if it turns out to be 400 in the budget, then we already have Karen going after sidewalk money, which is pretty appropriate considering some of the sidewalks in town. So if we wanted, but that's not necessarily going to offset for tax relief, because I don't think there's a sidewalk portion allotted this year going into the warrant in the budget. I'm not 100% sure, but I know that in the past we've talked about doing that in capital, and I know that the sidewalks could use it in some parts. So that may be that. I think that's a separate discussion though.
I'd recommend the 5%. I mean, 500 to get it under the 5%, like Mr. Shoner said. I think that should suffice if we said, I'm sorry, just saw your hand up, Mr. Shoner. I didn't mean to interrupt. But
going.
I personally, I'd like to see 500 go in, because that gets us to the 808,000 that Mr. Ballantyne had said that would get us under 5%, which again is like the $200 savings per household.
Do we need to get to 808 and they have 300 allocated so far? Do we need to do 508?
I think they have 330, so we could be a little bit under the 5. But if we whatever, we'd like to. We could even say we'd like to put in enough to offset the current budget to be only a 4.9 on under 5% increase.
I mean, we're also just making a recommendation. I know we said that a couple times, right? We could just vote on the 500. And then if the select board looks at it and says, wait a second, we need another like $2,000 to get us, they can just do that, right? It gets the intent's there, right? At 500.
I'd
So
like
we
to
have a
withdraw
motion on the floor. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
In favor of a new motion. I'd like to recommend that the ARPA committee recommend that we use 500,000 funds of ARPA funds to both cover the 400,000 road budget allocation and another 100,000 with the intent to bring the tax rate below 500, to bring the tax rate below 5% if that is possible.
A second.
There any additional discussion? Oh, Mr. Bastine?
I'm just wondering why we have to say what it's for. I mean, can't the select board decide what it's for? As long as it's used for an expense of the town, it's going to relieve the budget. I don't know a lot about the finance, so that's why I wonder why we have to do that.
So just say 500, but not tied
Just
to a line item.
500,000 to alleviate, keep the tax burden under 5%. Is there a reason why it should be, say, roads?
The reason why I said roads was because it ties it to something that's already in the budget that's going to be passed. So therefore, it's something that as a committee, we can endorse and point to. Not that the select board can do whatever they want, and you are 100% correct. But as a recommending body, I would just propose that we look at that as a large portion of those funds because it's already going to be in the budget. So therefore, we can point to it and go, that's a good place for it to offset. And it's a justification on as coming out of us as a committee that those would be a worthy use of the funds. Not that you're absolutely right in your assessment. As you know, from where I am, I just like to be able to point to something and go, that's what we said the money should go for. Just because that's already there. And nobody, I don't think anybody would argue against it. That's all.
So we could say we're recommending the 500,000 towards the roads budget that's on the warrant for the purpose of alleviating, of keeping the tax rate below 5%. The tax increase. Tax increase, tax rate. I don't know the terminology.
So to be 500,000, including the, because five, we're over the 400, right? So I think it's.
Yeah, I believe my
good-
motion
yeah.
labeled 400 toward the road budget with an extra $100,000 toward tax relief.
Okay.
Was in the motion. So it would both say that's where the money should go, but there's also extra money that we believe should be targeted towards tax relief.
Mr. Schoner?
So, I think I personally like this. I think that it's also good that we're doing this in a very timely fashion, right? I think it's good. Our committee is like acting quickly, which I think is very nice. And then it gives time for the select board to respond back if they don't understand what we're saying. So, maybe they'll comment back to us and say, well, if you word it this way, it might be more effective. But again, I have no idea how this works.
They can always, I mean, again, right, nothing they don't even have to come back to us, right? They can just say, they can take the intent of the 500, they can see the practicality of the roads and then decide if they want to use that practicality or do a different accounting mechanism to get there or do something totally different, right?
Very, very good point. Very good point.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Is there any additional discussion or would we like to vote on it?
Could you read it back to us?
Mr. Palmer?
Honestly, I'm not even sure I could say it the way I said it before. I'm not even sure it was that clear. Here, let me withdraw my motion. I'll put another motion on the floor. I'm going to withdraw my motion. Let me propose a motion that the ARPA committee dedicate $500,000 towards tax relief, 400,000 of which earmarked toward the road budget item of 400,000 that's in the budget every year, and the other 100,000 to be used for projects that would offset cost to bring the tax rate down, hopefully below 5%.
Would it help here? Did you write that down? If not, I'm trying to write it down. Would it be helpful if I pop it up? We can look at it.
I didn't write it down.
Hold on. I tried to catch it as you're going. Hang on.
Maybe I should open up my Google software and have it put it on there for me.
Okay, hang on. Okay, so the ARPA committee dedicates 500, recommends, right?
Yeah.
Recommends and dedicating $500,000 to tax relief with $400,000. And again, we feel confident that the road budget is a flat 400, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, applied
Sorry,
to,
400.
okay,
It may be actually going up, but let's do 400. See what happens.
okay. To the roads budget, is that the formal?
Yep.
Okay, the roads budget. And an additional $100,000 applied to, you said it nicely.
Projects that would alleviate the tax burden, hopefully below 5%.
Okay. below per
Yeah,
household.
maybe to projects that would with a target of reducing the tax burden to, or whatever, right?
No, I like that with a target of reducing. Sure.
With a target of having the tax rate increase be less than 5%.
With a target of having the tax
Of the tax rate, yeah, we'll have to keep
Yeah.
wordsmithing here.
rate
Increase.
When we go with the target of reducing the tax rate,
Well, you have
Yeah.
to say that reducing the tax rate increase, right? Because that's what
tax
we're,
rate, yes,
Tax
yes, you're right.
rate
Tax rate increase,
increase. Okay,
5%. Yes. Excellent.
like this. The
Sure.
ARPA committee recommends dedicating $500,000 to tax relief with $400,000 applied to the roads budget and an additional $100,000 applied to projects with a target of reducing the tax rate increase below 5%. It's per household, right?
I don't think you have to say that. You don't
No.
have to say
You have to
that.
say it just below 5%.
I think the fewer words, the better here. in
Okay.
my opinion.
Yeah, I
Mr.
was going to make a suggestion. The word, an additional 100 doesn't make it clear that it comes out of that 500. I would just say and 100.
Sure.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they might think we're doing 600.
Okay.
Very good.
And I would say
Very,
instead
very
of reducing the tax rate, of limiting the tax rate. I know it's wordsmithing, but we're not reducing it because it hasn't passed yet.
Okay.
Excellent point.
I like that.
Excellent point.
Okay. So the ARPA committee recommends dedicating $500,000 to tax relief with $400,000 applied to the roads budget and $100,000 applied to projects with a target of limiting the tax rate increase below
To-
5% to below 5%. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
The only other thing I might
Perfection.
say,
Should we add for, oh, sorry.
might maybe apply to other projects, right?
Other projects.
With a target of limiting, the tax rate increase to, less than 5%.
Yeah, I like that.
Then ARPA committee recommends a $500,000 tax relief, $400,000 applied to the roads budget and $100,000 applied to other projects with a target of limiting the tax rate increase to less than 5%.
Should we put for FY23?
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. This is excellent group wordsmithing.
All right, so wait a minute. So wait a minute. In technicality, I should be removing my motion
Okay.
in
Yeah.
favor of this motion.
Yeah. So someone now needs to make this motion, right?
I
Oh,
would
this
like
is-
to make a
this is
motion that
your
we
motion,
accept
Joe.
this.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept this as the ARPA committee and send it to the select board.
Do
I
we need to
second
read
it.
it? Is it okay if it's just written down? Does it need to be like read out loud? Is it okay?
The ARPA committee recommends dedicating $500,000 to tax relief with $400,000 applied to the roads budget and $100,000 applied to other projects with a target of limiting the tax rate increase to less than 5% for fiscal year 2023.
Second.
All right. So let's do a roll call vote.
Just
Mr.
Make it 2023.
And that was what was read, right? So we don't have to
Yeah.
redo the
Yeah,
motion.
that's what was read. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
that's good.
Good. So we're ready to do a roll call. Mr. Wood? Ms. Rubin,
Sorry,
John, can you say that again? You
aye.
were muted. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Ms. Rubenstein,
Aye.
Ms. Latrell,
Aye.
Mr. Palmer,
Aye.
Mr. Schoner,
Aye.
and I will also vote aye. So the motion passes. All right. So from a
Hey, are we allowed
Yay.
to give ourselves a little round of applause here?
good job.
And I was gonna ask Mimi in the minutes if she could avoid everything I said right up until this motion. I would greatly appreciate it.
Mimi, do you need me to send you this sentence? Is this like, did you catch this?
I'll rewatch the minutes.
I think we're allowed.
I've
to say
stopped
every-
trying to write stuff down.
I think we should say the minutes should reflect something about a laborious discussion trying to fix Joe's recommendation.
Good. So from a practical standpoint, I can send this over to there's a packet for the select board meeting for discussion on Tuesday that's getting put together right now. So I think this would make sense to go in that packet and then perhaps also get sent over to the select board directly. Does that make sense? like in terms of just communicating this over to them that we had the vote, Mr. Wood?
While we're sending the packet, did you send them an email asking about a budget for that? I saw in the last slide for the direct mail thing.
For the direct mail, I did not, and I remembered that I'm supposed to do that as I was pulling together my notes for today.
Yeah, if we could,
So I'll send Lisa an email. Yeah.
saying it could be between, on the low side, I'm gonna say $400 to $800. I can start looking into it more.
Because that would need to be in the packet for them to discuss.
Yes.
All right, let me hold on while I'm just okay. So
And that way they can decide if it's gonna actually, if they want to give us any money and how hard I look into it afterwards.
Yep. Okay. So for the packet, we have this vote, right? And then we have request for $400 to $800
Yeah, I can't see it.
for
I see it
Yep.
probably being 500 or 600
Mhm.
realistically.
And that's for the direct mail campaign to promote the
Public input.
public input, to promote public input. Yep. Input. Okay. All right. I will get both of those things to them for the packet.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Productive discussion. Okay. So continuing from there, our next item is taking a look at the fund log. I think this can be really fast. I just figure it's useful each week to kind of look at where we are in terms of requests as they're coming in. So here is, I sent this around too, so everyone should have this. Okay. So I've really just high level been compiling what has come in. A lot of this is kind of half stuff right now, right? So it's things that have come in. For some, I've got our formal survey now. So the survey did go out to everyone along with the new date of the 28th. So that's this Monday as the updated deadline. And so in some cases I have back that full survey. In some cases I have, a partial request, and I'm still waiting for the survey to come back to make sure we have all the information. But as of now, we have a request that's in from the planning board that included 5 different pieces. Mimi, maybe this is a question for you to take back. In general, I would say these didn't come with sort of a broad estimated costs and things like that. It looks like most of these things were kind of backing for recommendation or requests that we would expect to come from other groups. Is that accurate? So for example, right, the resolving for the drainage on Main Street near Morrow's, I don't have a request for that. But I also, I don't know if planning would want to planning to put in a formal proposal.
Yeah, so
That
that would
makes
come,
sense.
that would come from the DPW.
Okay.
And
So
there are already plans for that, I think.
So how would we want to manage things like that? So I have, because from the DPW, I have the sidewalk request, but I don't have anything additional.
You mean additional from Karen, you mean?
Yeah, so right. So what DPW is asking for is for funding the sidewalk work, right? But planning is saying that, a priority for them would be to resolve drainage. So presumably there is a proposal from DPW that matches up with this request from planning, right?
Well, I'm not, the drainage, I mean, they're planning on redoing that area of Main Street down that way as it is. Am I correct, Mimi, in saying that?
Well, yeah, so new sidewalks, and they got the easement from CSX to fix the sidewalks and to put drainage under the tracks, because
Yeah, I don't think that this second request from Karen for the 300,000 to 400,000, I don't think it's related to the one above. I think we should have a conversation with her about that, but sidewalks have been underfunded, and even repair has been underfunded. for a couple of years, I believe now, in terms of keeping up the system where it is, and even
I would say
even expanding.
non-funded.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, yeah.
that's-
So
that's
right.
probably
So I
very
do.
more
So
appropriate. Yes.
yeah.
Uh,
So again,
so-
so I guess the question is, right? So we have this request from planning, but there isn't any kind of detail that goes with it, right? And
I
so
can-
would we ask? Yeah, go ahead, Mimi.
I can reach out to Karen because she has plans and it's unclear whether she has already received grant funds for this or not. So I'll reach out to Karen and ask her and
Okay.
see if not, if there's any type of an estimate on that.
So would that also, okay, so let's do a quick run through from planning then, because I think it's similar on all of them, right? So we've got the Route 9 public sewer, small wastewater treatment plant to support the economic growth. Is that something where a proposal exists somewhere that we could match up to this?
I think EDC has a grant that's starting on this.
John, I see your hand up.
Is that correct, John?
Am I muted? Nope, I'm not muted. Wow, that's the first time I actually went to unmute myself and I already wasn't muted. I had my hand up originally just because for the sidewalks, that has been on every study, every survey, everything. That's the number one thing the town has been asking for is sidewalks. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know everybody knows that, but I'm
Yep.
just making sure that's been the number one thing forever, for as long as I've been in town that I can remember.
I will say
and-
that the order of these has absolutely no bearing on anything at this point. It's just
I
as I
know.
was logging them in. Just,
But when
yeah.
you're talking about sidewalks, there's a lack of funding. That's been the number one request on every study, every master plan, every housing production and the connectivity. It's always been a part of it. So that was all. And then yes, getting the EDC has a grant right now for I think $50,000 to do a wastewater study on Route 9 to find out about wastewater treatment and support on that. I think that it's going to take more than the $50,000 study to find out on that one, though, to be totally honest. I don't know how much, but that would be a guess. But there's also another one-stop grant out there that we're working on and reapplying for, that some other money might be able to be part of figuring out what to do on Route 9. If
Alright.
we go for that grant and get it.
John, can you elaborate what the specific problem is?
Yeah, we have no wastewater and no water really on Route 9, and we can't tie in. We can't even think about tying into Westboro or Framingham anymore because Deer Island's pretty much at capacity. So that's what limits like a lot of the life science and the biotech, the labs that are trying to come in and going into all the towns around us. That's what's keeping them out of Southborough. We can't get them in because we don't have wastewater to go into it.
So this is about wastewater from the commercial properties.
Yeah, it could be for commercial properties. It's if you wanted to put, I mean, who knows what the landscape of these office buildings is going to look like 3 to 5 years from now. I mean, we're still seeing all sorts of different vacancies in the city and different things like that from COVID and the landscaping of, hybrid, remote working, things like that. So I don't foresee us, I don't know, but if you wanted to turn these office buildings even into housing, we couldn't do it just because of lack of wastewater and water availability.
So can I just recommend that for the purposes of tonight, let's not get too deep in the weeds on
No,
kind
he
of
was just
discussing the
asking what
merits.
was-
Yeah, no, 100%,
what was going
100%.
on
Just,
right
but I think I think for me, I'm just trying to plug in the holes here and figure out if there's still information we have to dig out to be able to look at these things. And so I guess so for this one, so again, I don't have any costs attached to it. It sounds like maybe we don't have costs yet because that's an in-process study. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and that's okay. We can leave it as a then that's something we take into account, right? When we talk about it, is that we don't have accurate numbers to attach. If there were, I wanted them. Okay, Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, let's throw sidewalks in that same category that you just said. So I think we could talk for hours just on sidewalks.
Yeah.
Not just repair, but also new and projects and.
Yeah, I think for tonight, there's merit is not part of the discussion, right? It's just how do we plug in the gaps so that we have all the information when we start to talk. Yeah. Okay, so wastewater, so I'm just gonna make a note, likely won't have, accurate cost numbers. Do we know when the study's done, John? First, yep, you're muted.
So no, I have no idea. We just got the grant and we're gonna start finding contractors to do the study.
Okay. In process, don't have date for cost numbers. We can just leave it at
And-
that.
I don't know when the one-stop grant will be announced or any feedback on that. I can find out for you and get back to you by next Thursday, because I think Marika, the EDC coordinator, she's on vacation this week. So I can follow up with her.
Okay, so John will check if there is additional information on timeline. Okay, good. This one-time abatement for taxes, we just did that, so hey.
Check.
Check. Done. All right, done, because maybe we want to do more, who knows. Okay, resolving the drainage, we said that Mimi, you're gonna reach out to the DPW for that to get a little, be able to fill in the details there.
Yeah.
This one, sidewalks, I'm gonna assume this is kind of more just a backing of what Karen submitted, or is this really a separate request?
Well,
Again,
it's
I just-
more,
Yep,
so
go
it's a specific area for a sidewalk, whereas Karen's request was more generic. So
Okay.
this could come under that request,
Okay,
could come out of that request of funds.
do we have specific numbers attached to this one?
Don't, but I assume, I can check with her on that. I think there's probably like so much per square foot or something, general cost for sidewalks that I can attach to that.
Did like a back of the envelope looking at some numbers, something like the $3 million could do like 5 to 15 linear miles of sidewalks. There's like some numbers that like the Department of Transportation has up. Or anyway, sorry,
I'll
Mr.
ask
Palmer.
my friend Google and see what I come up with.
That's yes. Okay. Cost. All right. Mr. Palmer, I think your hand was up first.
When I saw the police and fire on the list, I thought I'd disclose to everybody. I attached a note to Gregory Martineau and also to the chair, asking for the numbers of teachers and administration in the Southborough schools and in the high school. So we would have an idea, because we may get a proposal from them, or if we don't, if we're considering police and fire, I thought that we should at least be aware of the numbers in the school system.
I haven't seen anything from the school. Maybe this starts to feed into our next conversation about, are we still missing folks? Do we think we invited the school to propose? I assume they were on the, so I know I had an action to follow up on the distribution list. So I did, and I sort of got pushed back because it's just a list. And so I wasn't able to get the list itself. I can double check. Sorry.
As I said,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted the committee to be
Yeah.
aware that I'd sent out that note and that I'd attached you to it.
Yeah, no, I saw the note. Now I'm just making me wonder, did we miss the schools? I can double check that one. I'll reach out. Mr. Wood.
I'm just looking, Mimi, I guess this question's for you. I see sidewalk connection from Fayville Central Street continuing across the causeway to the corner of White Bag. How I think that is amazing, because I fish there all the time. And would we be able to put a sidewalk on that? Or is that something that would have to get through MWRA to widen or do anything on that? And then I know Trails at one point wanted to have a bike trail or something that went on the CSX property from Central Street to connect to downtown. They were trying to find out if they were able to do that, because that would be pretty cool too. So I just didn't know if we could even put a sidewalk across the causeway there, because that'd be great.
I don't know.
So let's, I'm gonna put that in the same general category as merits and feasibility and discussion. Let's table that for the moment. Is that
love the concept of just telling everybody that right now. That would be so neat.
I'd love one on 85 too.
Again, Google told me we could build 5 to 15 miles of sidewalks with this money. I mean, less now because we just gave some of it to tax relief, but we can do lots of things. Okay, redoing the senior center. I've got a formal senior center proposal below. So this is the same, right? So I don't need any additional details here.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, this is these two. I haven't received formal proposals from facilities. I was just capturing them from the discussion when we had facilities come to the meeting a few weeks ago. So it was the Corderville Hall edition. Again, this is senior center, and then this ADA compliance for town facilities. Again, I haven't received a formal proposal on either of those, but I was just capturing them from the discussion we had a few weeks ago. Mr. Wood?
When we spoke to Mr. Parent, he was saying that he was looking at other bids if he couldn't get Assabet to do the build out, which, what did they say? It was like $375,000. I had heard that they had gotten similar bids from an outside contractor. Have you heard anything about that, or did they ever get back to us?
No, I have received nothing formal from facilities. I only have the conversation. I mean, maybe this is a separate discussion. My assumption is that anyone who's serious about petitioning for the money and executing a project is going to put their solicitation in. We've been pretty clear about what we're looking for at this point.
Okay.
But do we think we need to be following up more specifically with folks? Because again, I haven't gotten anything back. We still have a few days.
Okay.
Ms. Rubenstein?
My question would be whether we're going to be making specific dollar recommendations, or if we're just going to say in order of priority, we're recommending the money be spent on these things. If we're just making priority recommendations, we don't need to get every single detail. It's more the merit of the project, and the select board can decide how much they want to appropriate toward each project.
I guess my assumption is that it's got to, since it has to fit within the monies we have, right? We would need to have some dollars attached to it in some sense, maybe not. I don't know. Mr. Palmer?
I think Ann's assessment is pretty correct. I mean, we're not going to be project managers, and we're not going to have 100% numbers. So, you know, a recommendation with the ballpark, throwing it to the select board to actually find somebody to flesh it out makes perfect sense.
And a lot less work for us.
But I'm just saying, right? So do we need any, I can leave this here. Again, if I don't get a proposal in the next 3 days, should I reach out to facilities for them to provide us more information, right? I mean, because I don't have anything for them on if there are additional grants they're pursuing and things like that. Yeah.
Would that be facilities or the big council on aging?
So this one, okay, so the Council on Aging has provided the formal one on the Corderville Hall, this ADA compliance for town facilities. This is the only information I have, right? And that was from the discussion we had a few weeks ago. And there might be a proposal in the works. I just don't know. Mr. Palmer?
In terms of the ADA stuff, there was a report of $150,000 to $200,000 was a spit in the bucket in terms of the amount of money to correct all the problems in town. So in terms of allocating money towards ADA compliance issues, just picking a ballpark amount of recommendation probably is exactly what we're going to be able to do, and let facilities and the select board sort out which are the best and most appropriate uses for it, because some of them you know, fall within the purview of other types of projects that they're going to do. So getting, you know, they're going to apply for grants, they're going to do all these other sorts of things. If we say, hey, we, you know, over a 3-year period allotting, you know, we recommend the allotment of this towards the ADA compliance issues is probably a very logical way to go about it.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave this here for now. Keep going. So we had an email that came from a resident with 2 suggestions, and I do want to make sure we capture those. So one was around trash cans where public sidewalks are installed, and another was for a town dog park. these are obviously, things that come in from residents are not necessarily like fully fleshed out proposals, but I feel like it's important to at least capture them. I think we can think about how we discuss them maybe later on, but just so folks know those are there. Mr. Palmer?
No, I was just going to ask if there were any specifics about it, but you just answered that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's an email. I think we should, yeah. If something comes in, I'm going to put it in because I feel like that's the right thing to do. The senior center renovations, we have a full proposal on that. I don't have any questions there. We had premium pay come from 2 different unions. I'm not 100% clear if they'd covered different officers, but this was both for premium pay for the police. Then there were a handful. There's a sort of a single document from Youth and Family Services that cover a number of different proposals. One was for a part-time mental health clinician. Here it's just an hourly rate. So presumably, as we start discussing, we might want to understand, how many hours we're talking. Mr. Wood, go ahead.
Sorry. So I saw the premium pays, and there was a number attached on the letter from the fire chief.
Yeah.
And then I saw that there was the dispatchers as well as the police union that sent it. Did they attach a number, like for how many people?
Yeah,
That
so
would be-
I don't have a number. So I just have the 5,000 per union member, and I don't have a number attached to it right now.
Because I saw fire was 120,000 total.
Yes, correct.
I'm just curious to what the police side would be.
Yeah, and I don't have total there. And that's one where I don't have the full proposal back yet. I can reach back out and specifically ask. I guess since there's still a few days, I was hoping that everyone has received the email now and will get back to me and answer those questions that we asked for.
Cool.
And then if we have like additional stuff to dredge up, we can do that. Ms. Rubenstein?
I was wondering if we, on the premium pay, I thought there was a measure in the legislature to fund that across the state, premium pay in the different communities for the public employees. I don't know how we would find out the status of that.
Do you think there's a
That's-
separate bill, right, or a separate piece of legislature?
It was part of the proposal to use the state ARPA funds.
So
That's-
separate than if, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was about to say that's a really good point, Ann. And remember, we were advised to keep talking to the consultant to keep
Yeah.
looking at things that would be double covered. So you're absolutely right. That's a really good thing to point out.
So the question is there separate premium pay legislature?
I think
Am I
it-
capturing that right?
Yeah, has the legislature allocated state ARPA money for premium pay for police, fire, or other public employees, teachers?
Okay. I know
If
that
we're going
it-
to consult, deal with the consultant, maybe we should have a whole list of questions so that it goes all at once rather than jack up the billing.
Yeah. I think let's do this again, because we still are waiting on proposals to come in. Let's next week, once we've got everything, we can go through and create that like collated list. Does that make sense? Again, because I know in the fire department one, I believe, because we asked the question, is there additional grant money for this or additional funding for it? And the fire chief said no. So that's a good question if we think that there is an opportunity there.
At this
Okay.
moment, there probably is not. I think it was still in the legislature,
Okay.
or maybe it got voted down. I don't know.
Okay. 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 So Youth and Family Services, part-time mental health clinician, marketing and outreach materials, a contract for an interface referral service is doing kind of sound like remote mental health counseling.
I have experience with that one. We used that this year. There's been a huge crunch in mental health professionals. And so it was a service to help to find available sources for people that were in need. And it was very effective for us. And I perceive that crunch is going to probably persist for a while now, until especially youth are digging out of that hole of being isolated. So I would just say that it worked for us, and that would certainly be worth a conversation with Sarah.
Okay. And then they had a general statement that they have a support for affordable housing opportunities. So no specific proposal attached to it, just a general note of support. So again, just logging it here to try to be holistic. Ms. Rubenstein and Mr. Palmer, your hands are both up right now. Are you both looking to make comment or okay?
No.
We had a couple from the Municipal Technology Committee. Again, not a lot of details. This was just an email. I'm hoping we get sort of more fleshed out proposal from them. So one was to upgrade the town's website to support more collaborative features. One to upgrade the town's Wi-Fi capabilities at specific town facilities. One to implement townwide event scheduling and registration system, and then to implement the interactive conference room capabilities. And so again, I just have a bulleted email right now with those points. So I'm hoping they come back with sort of the more fleshed out version. This is the one we got from DPW, which is sidewalks. We all love sidewalks. There's the premium pay for both full-time and part-time fire department members. And so there again, so this was also the 5,000 per, it was 5,000 per full-time member, 1,000 per part-time member. And there they gave me a total. So it's the 120 is what they're looking for a total. And then we had one that came in from the town clerk to purchase 600 voting devices, including software, receivers, to enable voters at town meeting to vote electronically in person. And so there's money attached to that one. Is there anything else to discuss here? Mr. Palmer?
I think we should ask Mr. Haggerty if we can vote from home with those. That'd be
Ooh,
great.
I like that. Yeah. Just vote all the time.
Sorry, I had to throw that in.
So again, not looking to have any sort of discussion around what we're thinking about any of these yet, but we'll keep logging as they come in next week. And we have got a couple follow-ups here. Mimi reaching out to DPW. And I like, Anne, your suggestion that we start, we compile a list to send over to the consultant. And again, I think we do that next week once we've got the full list here. Any other questions, comments around bids coming in? Not bids, requests, whatever we want to call these. All right. I will say, so I reached out to Jason from IT and asked if we could have a SharePoint to kind of plop all these things into. He said we didn't have anything like that, but then Mimi sent me an email and said that planning has a box folder. So Mimi, you were going to reach out right to someone on planning to ask if there's like, because it's going to be an enormous pain if we just keep forwarding things. And I mean, I had to go through 6 times in my email just to make sure I wasn't missing any proposals. And I don't want to make sure we're able to really carefully track things here. But you should have everything at this point in your inbox.
Yeah, I haven't heard back yet, and I don't have the technological expertise to figure it out. But I know Master Plan has a Google Drive that someone from Municipal Technology set up for us, who used to be on the committee. So I don't know did Jason say that it's like you can't have one, or they just don't have town endorsed ones? Or
let me see, hold on. What did he say? He said, we do not have SharePoint or a way for you to access it, unfortunately. I am not familiar with another option that could replace it either. My apologies. That's what I got.
Okay.
So, I mean, maybe folks are just using other stuff just as a convenience. And if that's all right, then I'm good with that. All right. So let's stop that one and keep moving. So the next thing on the list is to review organizations that have been contacted for funds requested and to identify any remaining gaps. So this was, I I had an action to follow up with Melanie and ask her who she sent it to. I did, but she sort of responded that it's just a big list that she sends to. So she didn't have kind of an easy just list of who she'd sent to, but she did confirm, because I know this was triggered because historical, there was someone in attendance 2 weeks ago who said they hadn't received the request, and she did confirm that the request had gone out to Mr. Weishen, so the historical should have it. I asked her to just resend it because it's probably just lost in an inbox, but I think the gap we identified didn't sound like it was actually a gap, so I'm hopeful that we're actually okay here. As an aside to that, I guess I will follow up and just double check on the schools, because Joe, when you mentioned Mr. Martineau, we really haven't talked about the schools at all in any of this, and I just want to make sure I assume they're on the town distribution list, but I know schools kind of are a little bit of a separate entity, so I will just double check with her that went. So beyond that, and I believe you contacted Shop C and also spoke to Youth and Family Services.
I did, yeah. Shop C has not really responded yet. Dorianne asked Sarah Hoeker, I don't know how to pronounce it, to get in touch with me, and I emailed her and I haven't heard back. I can give a call or try again to reach her. I did talk with Sarah Cassell, and she said there are quite a few, where's my note on this, emergency funds. There's as far as gaps that we didn't cover, she said that the main way people get their social needs met are Youth and Family Services, the food pantry, the Southborough Emergency Fund Committee, which is a kind of a quiet committee, but people can apply to get help with rent or utilities or a one-time car repair if they're desperate, they can't get to work. Some of the examples she gave of the kind of things they do, there was a refugee family that couldn't get work because their appointment for their green card kept getting canceled. So they actually found a position where they didn't need to have a green card, and they sent them to a class to be medical interpreters. So they paid for that class, that kind of thing. There's also the Southborough Community Fund, and that's mostly supported by the Foundation for Metro West and from individual donations from some big donors in the community. And there's a committee that reviews requests similar to the other one. There's the Southborough Trust Fund Committee, which I guess is a legacies, money that people leave in their wills to the town, and there's a committee that reviews that. So there seems to, and the Friends of the Southborough Youth and Family Commission. But all of these, I guess we could send individual notices to those separate funds, but do we need to? I mean, they have their own funding.
Would any of these be town? So the Southborough Emergency Fund, the Southborough Community Fund, the Southborough Trust Fund. So I actually had the Southborough Trust Fund on my list. I reached out, haven't heard back from them. Those are all town committees who would presumably have gotten the reach out for a proposal if they wanted to submit something. Is that correct? Or these are separate
No, I don't think so.
groups?
I think they're separate.
Okay.
Some of them have town officials or department members on their boards, was my understanding. But I don't know that, maybe people who've been here longer would know more details about that. I don't know. I mean, we were just doing a quick rundown of different relief groups in the town.
Mr. Wood?
I actually worked the food pantry the other night, and I talked to Bev, and I forwarded our questionnaire email to her just because we had talked about them before. So it's at the food pantry. I can find out about the trust fund commission because my wife actually serves on that committee. That is a town committee. So I can find out if they received it as well.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. And I had also, I think also reached out to the youth and family services to ask about nonprofits, because that was, I think we had a little bit of overlap. That was on my list, and
Yeah.
the food bank was the one that came up. She said that's really the main. There's for other nonprofits in towns, there's a lot of friends of groups for all of the different
Right.
town divisions, but that it's the food pantry. I'm just gonna Google real quick the Southborough Emergency Fund Committee and see if that's really separate, or if that's something we would have covered already. Is it the Southborough Emergency Fund Committee?
That's the title I was given.
Yeah.
And Sarah gave me a data sheet of some of the things they support, the kinds of requests they've got over the last few years. And it's things like grocery gift cards, gas gift cards, help paying the car insurance, providing clothing after a fire, things like that.
So this is the Southborough Emergency Fund. It says residents under the age of 60, please contact Youth and Family Service. Residents over 60, contact outreach coordinator for the senior center. Oh, here we go, southboroughcommunityfund.org. Yeah, so this does look established in 2014 by local residents. Southborough Community Fund promotes a spirit of philanthropic giving, help enhance the quality of life for Southborough residents. Okay, so this does look like a totally separate group. And then we
But
had
they get
this.
referrals through the town.
Yeah, it said to contact Youth and Family Services or the senior center to get put in touch with them.
Mhm.
John, is your hand up? Oh, you're muted.
It is. So I just yelled across my house to my wife, and Brian Ballantyne is who you'd reach out to for the trust fund, the Commission of Trust Funds.
Okay, that's
whatever
a
the
different
thing-
name than was on the website. Okay,
Whatever's on the website. Well, I say it wrong every time.
it was a
But-
Nicholas that was on the website.
Yeah, he's the chair, but everything goes to Brian Ballantyne, who's the town treasurer. So they
Okay,
have to apply to him first. So if you want to, I'm
You just forward
assuming
it over.
Brian,
Yes.
I'm assuming Brian probably got the email for the request.
Okay. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out what do we do with these other so okay, emergency fund release, is that what this is? Form. So do we think we need to do some sort of separate reach out to any of these, or do we feel like we've covered ourselves by going through Youth and Family Services? 'Cause, John, it sounds like you already covered the food pantry, which again is the big one that's come up. Is it, I'm trying to see if there's a contact here for the Southborough Community Fund. I mean, is there like a person that we could just send it to if they wanted to submit something? Oh, this is going to like Metro West. I don't see an obvious like Southborough person who runs this. So the only contacts I'm seeing are Youth and Family and Senior Center. So I kind of feel like oh, and go ahead. Sorry, I'm just talking to
I think we're
myself.
covered. I
Yeah,
think we're pretty much covered if from the people we've discussed.
Okay.
And the community fund, if it's going through Foundation for Metro West, that's a big organization. I think we don't want to compete with them. They have money to give away too.
yes. Okay, so do we feel kind of, so we're waiting to hear from Shopsy, but Shopsy also has its own board, right? So they should have gotten our request. John, you sent the request over to the food pantry. I can follow up with the trust fund group as well, but again, that's a Southborough committee, and so they should have also received our request. So I think we're pretty comprehensive at this point. Does anyone feel differently?
My wife just got a call from Pamela Francis from the senior center, who wants me to call her tomorrow, and she'll help me understand what committees and things to call.
Okay.
tomorrow as well.
Hey,
So
all
I'll
right.
reach out to
Okay.
her for more information.
Okay.
I asked her if she wanted to try to do public comment in a little bit, but I'll just follow up with her tomorrow if that's okay with everybody.
Good with me.
Unless she's still here. She is. But I can reach out to her tomorrow if that's
Okay.
easier.
Okay. Good.
Nope, she's got her
Any-
hand up.
Oh, yep. Let me see. If I
Thanks, Pam.
can. All right, Pam, I'm allowing you to talk. So you are muted, but you should be able to speak now.
Hi. Interesting way of relaying information to John. So I was talking to Sue. Basically, the Southborough Community Fund funds the Emergency Fund Committee, which is made up of the senior staff from the Senior Center, Youth and Family Services, and the food pantry. And so the requests come through, depending on the age of the person or the situation, comes through one of those three groups to that committee, and the committee makes those decisions basically on what to fund and what not to fund. The Southborough Community Fund is part of the Foundation for Metro West. But what they did, they're
Oh no,
part of
those
that
little apple ones
foundation.
are killer.
I'm sorry, what? Did somebody have a question? I'm sorry. So
Thought I was on mute. Sorry.
oh, okay. So that is basically how that works. So we're all pretty much, since all of those groups are us and Youth and Family Services. I'm not sure about the food pantry. So it sounds like Woody's already reached out to them. So we're all aware of all of this. So I think that's covered. I don't know if you had any other questions about that.
No, I think for me, the big one is, do we have the coverage? And it sounds like we do. So
Yep.
Awesome.
Sarah's aware of it. I'm aware of it. And he reached out to them. So all of those three groups are covered. And then the other group is the Town Trust Fund Committee, and that would be the Brian Valentine connection through the town. So,
okay.
okay,
Awesome. No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
okay, thanks. Bye.
All right.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
All right. Let me see if I have to do something to detox someone. Disable talking. Okay. Great. Okay. So I think I will forward what I sent to Nicholas to Brian Valentine. And then I think we're good. Yeah.
The schools.
Oh, and schools. Yes, schools. All right. So I got 2 for me. Okay. Good. Schools trust fund. So that brings us to we also had, okay, so I guess I've got a couple more on here. We had talked about how to seek input from local business community. And I think, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Schoner, go ahead.
That's quite all right. So guys, I have an issue that's come up here at home, and so I need to step out for a little bit. And I will come back in if I can.
Okay. Yeah, we still have a
So-
quorum, so we're good.
Okay, so sorry for having to leave a little unexpectedly here.
Okay.
And maybe I'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
John, I had your name next to how to get input from local businesses, and I think this was maybe an EDC question.
Marika's on vacation.
Ah,
So
okay.
she's back this week,
All right.
Monday. So
Okay. So I will leave that one with you. We can talk about it next Thursday. We'll be past our deadline, but I assume if there's something that we need to extend for, we can. And we talked about, I think we just talked about all the different relief funds. So that covers what I had opened. Does anyone else have discussions that they've had, or any questions or comments about just who we are reaching out to that they want to bring up here before we move on? Okay, so I will reach out to the schools, or I will reach out to confirm that we contacted the schools. I will send the trust fund one to Brian Ballantyne, and John, you'll do the reach out for EDC to see if there's any way we need to be soliciting kind of needs from local businesses. And I think those are the three outstanding, and otherwise we've done a really nice job of connecting to everyone we need to connect to. Okay. Community outreach to spread awareness of committee meetings, survey, and public forums. It's our next one. The first item I had was around the Everydoor mail drop. So we had talked about this earlier. I'll include that in the email for the packet for the Board of Selectmen, for the Select Board next week, for the $400 to $800. John, was there anything else that was needed for that, or does that pretty much close the item that we just need to get the funding approved? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, we just need to have funding approved, and then we can reach out to like Quick Print, the local printer, to see how much they charge to print up. It's just a one color postcard, it shouldn't be all that much, and then you drop them off. And I know we should have the permit already set up for the town, because we've done them in the past with EDC, so we can just use that permit number, drop them, boom, done. And they'll put it in every mailbox, every post box. So.
Okay.
As long as we have approval, and then it's just whatever content we want to put on the postcard.
Okay, cool. We had also talked about, I think we had said we needed to kind of to punt this discussion, because there's also some stuff coming up sort of towards the end of the meeting 2 weeks ago that was getting lost around. Do we put something up outside of the dump? Are we hanging posters? Do we want to continue?
It's a
that
transfer
conversation?
station.
Transfer station, sorry, not the dump. The transfer station. I will note, so we've got 40 minutes left in this meeting, and I still have the community services surveys and the evaluation criteria on the agenda. I don't think it's a big deal if we don't get to evaluation criteria this meeting, but I do think we need to start talking about surveys if we're expecting to have a survey out in the next couple weeks.
Yes.
So maybe, unless there's any more significant discussion to be had around the outreach piece, maybe we hold off and we can talk a little bit more about that next week, and we move to surveys.
Yes.
Does that make sense? All right. Okay, so let's do that. Let's keep moving, and let's go and over to surveys. So Anne, I'm going to let you, I know you've been talking to the MTC folks a lot and have a lot of information. So I'm going to let you kind of speak to what you know, and we take it from there.
Okay, I mentioned before that Matt was willing to help draw up the survey and get it out. I would go with his recommendation to be at the top of the town survey, only because we need to do it quickly. He's ready to go, and it'd be a separate category and say table of contents, ARPA survey, town survey, and demographics optional. We would just have to come up with our 5 questions or 4 questions. And my recommendation, I could draft it just from the list, the spreadsheet, just the categories. And I could ask him to put in, he offered to put a couple of different formats so we can decide how we want to do it. We can have pick 3 out of these 10 items, or we can have number them 1 through 10, or we can have, he called it a sliding bar, where you actually move it up on the screen. And I believe if you want to put paper flyers around town, they have QR codes that we could say on a piece of paper, fill out our survey online, here's the QR code, and it takes you right there. And he has a vehicle for promoting his survey, which ours would be part of.
So this would, since it's part of the bigger town survey, we'd basically be blasted already anywhere that they're already doing that. And that's
Yes, but we would be a separate
Yep.
section. He said,
But in the
people
same
are-
link, right? Like you go through the link, you're in the whole
Yes.
town survey, and we're just part of that.
But you can choose. You can just say, I want to do the ARPA survey. I don't want to do the 49 questions in the town survey. I want to do the 5-question one
So we're
You're
not part
taken
of
to
the
that
main
location.
survey. Okay. Would it make more sense for us to just be part of the main survey, or is that
Well,
happening
it's
later?
going to take a lot longer to aggregate, aggregate their data. They also have professional people who are volunteers in the community that will compile the data, and they can do it very quickly for our 5 questions. But if they're doing the whole survey, you know, he said within a week they could have those results. So we could also have the raw material ourselves.
Okay.
And I would be willing to make up a draft survey for next time with his help, just so you can see the format, and then we can kind of edit it. We're so good at editing.
That sounds awesome.
Well, it's
And
good to have
so-
something to start with.
And so the proposed format, so when we say 5 questions, so it sounds like one question is really kind of a list of the proposals with a rank, right? Were there suggestions, or sorry, go ahead.
We didn't go into the details. My suggestion, I've done surveys before. We had 4 goals, 4 categories that we set out last week, which I don't know if I have them here.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Here.
One was risk reduction on future town expenditures, address significant community wants, reduction of property tax burden, and ongoing pandemic related needs, something like that. We could just break them down into categories under that. We can't give them every detail of how much things are going to cost. I think I would recommend doing something like sidewalks, bike paths, dog park, you know, simple categories. And I don't care what order they're in, or I would just take them off our spreadsheet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds awesome. And if you guys can have the ability to put together sort of a sample for next week, and then we can kind of real-time edit, maybe that makes the most sense. I know my spreadsheet isn't like the most beautiful language right now, so I know you can probably make it a little tidier in the first pass, or even just leave it as it is, and then we can kind of adjust the language or whatever.
Does anybody have strong feelings either way about being on the town survey? I mean, that's my feeling, but.
Mimi, you're muted.
I agree. I think that's the way to go. If there were 2 different ones, you know, people are getting surveyed to death.
Mr. Palmer?
I think my only real concern is if we're at the end of the survey. You know, if they're asking 49 questions, for instance, and we're the last, you know, 5, you know, there will be a fall off of a certain percentage of the people that go to fill out the survey that will tail off after a certain number of questions because they just lose interest or don't understand where it's going. So that's my only real concern about it.
We would be a separate section. There's table of contents. Number 1 is ARPA. He said we would be the first survey. Number 2 would be the town survey. So people would see us first, could answer us, and answer nothing else if they wanted. They just have to be motivated.
Can we choose the title under which the survey will be,
Yep.
you know, listed?
Yep.
Okay.
It's totally, what do you want to do with $3 million? I mean,
Thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. If you put that right out there, as that's the whole purpose, I think people will actually do it.
No, we only have 2.5 million now.
well,
That's all.
2.7. Let's go for it all.
well, and I mean, our postcard can affect that too.
Okay.
The way we phrase that.
Would we have an open section for just general comment as well, do we think? Or do we
If you
limit
want
to?
We
Yeah,
will
I
do
guess
anything we
I
want.
tossed that question out. Do folks think we should have an open comment section or limit to just questions? Anne?
I like the idea of open comment just because people, for instance, we had the trash can suggestion. I mean, we want people to respond, let them respond with what they want. If they don't like the things above or they have an additional one, it doesn't hurt anything. It's just we have to have a limited number of characters. So we don't want 2,000 word essays.
Good. So so is the action here that for next week, and it sounds like we have, I don't know, we structure it as sort of the 4 different categories, and then we just drop the different suggestions we have so far under those categories, and you can bring it in kind of as a sample and some of the
Yeah.
different kind of ways we can do it. All right, and we can look at it next week, and we'll make that our primary agenda item for next week is making sure we've got the survey finished out. So if I'm looking at our timing, we said we wanted to send the survey starting March 14th. So that gives us 2.
Well, if we could do it sooner even, that would, well, we don't have to now, right?
Yeah.
We've made a recommendation to the town.
Yeah.
And I would have to make sure that MTC is all ready to do that, because it does require some of their effort to write it out and put it in the right formats and everything.
It would give us 2 meetings
Yeah.
to get it finalized and out the door, which seems good. And yeah, I think we can now say we with the recommendation we passed earlier, we don't have to, we're really now just moving towards that May 16th date, right, for everything. Okay. Anything else to discuss with the survey? Okay. So since it's 9 o'clock, I'm just going to jump back up to the community outreach piece then for a second and kind of close out that conversation if there's any other actions we need to be taking there. So we said I will include for the doormail drop. Did we want to talk about flyers or a transfer station board or anything like that, or we can just talk about it next week, like we said before. We just have some extra time. Anne?
Could we consider asking my Southborough to say that we're looking for suggestions just from the general public prior, and that a survey will be coming up, just a brief notice to them? A lot of people read it. I mean, I don't know their numbers, but I read it.
Coming. So a note in Southborough that the survey will be coming, and so to keep an eye out for it.
Yeah, and you can comment at our meeting. Should we have specific time set aside from, say, so people know when to come to comment? I mean, should we say at 8:30 or at 9 o'clock every meeting we're going to do that? Or it seems challenging to ask somebody to sit through the entire meeting waiting to make a comment. But if 20 people show up, then we have a problem.
Yeah, I like that idea, is maybe just have it. I guess if we have a short meeting, do you sit and wait for public comment? But we haven't had a short meeting yet. John, I see your hand up.
I'd do a dedicated meeting for a public forum, like allow most of the time for public comment, because I think you may have more attendees than you think, especially if you do a public outreach with the Everydoor drop. If we put up a sign at the transfer station, like one of the lighting signs like that the DPW has, saying that, public forum at X date at X time online, I think you get some fairly decent attendance. And I think, people may have things to say. I think it's our job to listen. I don't think I'd put just 15 minutes of public speaking at them, because I think if you have 20, 30 people come in that all want to say something, when do you cut them off? Or it gets too late. But if you have a dedicated night, we have a quick agenda of just approving our minutes and such, and then public comment. That would be my thought.
So as a suggestion, we keep it as it is for the standard meeting where there's always public comment available, but it's not it's just comes at the end of the meeting. And then I know we talked about having a dedicated forum, and we had said we would do that sort of in the window when the survey is out. So given that we're almost in March, should we select a date for that now? Because if we're going to be talking about a mailer next week, we should probably have a date. So if I'm looking at the calendar, we had said we would send the survey on the 14th and that we would close it on the 25th. So that would leave public comment either the 17th or the 24th. I think I'd probably suggest the 24th just to give us
That's
time
what I
to
would
get all this
suggest
stuff
as
out in
well.
advertisement. Okay. So, all right. So what do we need to do to get there? So we've got a lot of different things up in the air now. Okay, so we want to put a note in my Southborough saying that the survey will be coming. Would anyone like to volunteer to write the note and submit it? Oh, I see Anne's hand up. Okay.
Are we allowed to post things like that? Like if Anne writes the letter and sends it out to all of us, are we allowed to put that on our own social media things and telling people about it, or is that not allowed? I don't know the protocol to that.
I believe it's allowed. Matt from the MTC said they have several Facebook groups that are very active in town that they post things to promote the town survey. They're saying it's coming out on such and such a date. And there's also a Twitter account that has about 1,200 followers, Southborough followers. And they put a notice on there to fill out the survey. So they could say, fill out the survey, come to the forum in 2 separate posts.
Because there's a Facebook page of Southborough Parents Share and Care, or it might have changed the name, but I didn't know if like I could post that to I'm part of that group. Am I allowed to post that on that? Am I not?
I
just
see
don't want.
people post that stuff on there like all the time, like school committee, or I think you're allowed to.
I would say
Okay.
it's up to that group's rules. Not, I mean, if we ask, they could say, yes, you can submit something.
I think to John's point, what's important here is that we publicly acknowledge the letter in a committee meeting and post it with our minutes, so that it's part of the committee, and then whatever happens, happens. For us, it's just a matter of making it public record so that we're fully disclosing all elements to the public from the committee. After that, what happened after that, it's public material. So you can post it anywhere, do anything you like.
Okay.
Okay, so then just again, sort of thinking about the steps we need to take here. So in the next week, we want a pre-note in my Southborough, and Anne, you're going to write that and submit that. Does that need to in some way be logged into the public record first? Do we need to review it in our town meeting or in our meeting next week and then it can get submitted, or can that just get written up and submitted? How does that work?
My inclination is to say if we're going to use it from this committee, we need to approve it in committee first.
Okay.
And then release it. And at that point, once we approve it and release it, then we can do whatever we want with it.
All right, so then at next week's meeting, should we plan for 2 things that we are going to, oh, sorry, Mimi, go ahead.
I think that we can agree on what it says it's going to say tonight, and then it can be posted if we want to save some time. If we agree on what we want to tell my Southborough and trust Anne that she will follow through with that, I think that's good enough.
I think so
Okay.
too.
So do we want, so I'm looking at the clock, we've got 20 minutes. So do we want to take a stab at my Southborough? The other thing we could do is I think we've got a couple different things that need to get written right now, it sounds like. And we could do a review of all of those next Thursday and then post them out. Or maybe we could do this because the list we have, right? So there's the pre-my Southborough, there's a direct mailer, right?
The direct mailer, just so you know, it's just a postcard. It's going to be 4 1/4 by 5. So it's going to have very limited content.
But still got to, do we need to approve what it says?
I would think so.
Okay. We want
But
to sign,
it would need to be brief.
okay. We want to sign at the transfer station, right?
Yeah.
And we want flyers.
Flyers, we got to find out if we have a budget for. And
Okay.
even this postcard, we got to make sure it's moot if we don't have a budget.
Okay.
But
You
the
know what?
sign at the transfer station, that's easy. That's DPW for their lighted sign, their LED sign.
Okay. So do we need, so let's assume, so we'll ask for the direct mailer, but let's operate as if we will get the funding for it, and we'll find out if we do. I mean, maybe we're already getting some advertising since this is attached to the main survey, so maybe we don't have to worry about flyers. But so we've got three things. We've got a note in my Southborough. Is it going to be two notes? Is there a note that's the pre-note and then a separate note that's going to go out when the survey is live? So are we saying, yep, sorry, go ahead, Ann.
I think that's up to you guys. I'd like to check with MTC on how they're promoting the survey and if they can get it out by, did we say March 14th?
Yeah.
I mean, I believe they can, but I'd like to confirm that before we send out anything in writing.
Okay.
And
So
the
how
same
about-
thing, they'll promote the forum at the same time or at a separate time, if you
Okay.
like.
So why don't we, in the interest of time, so, and do you want to prep a statement for my Southborough and we can review it next week at the meeting?
Yeah.
Does someone want to like throw together some language for the mailer? John, you doing that?
I can do that.
I know you can like copy and paste what you did for EDC.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. Do we also need to give the transfer station language? Presumably.
I think
That's
that'd
gonna have
be
to be
pretty.
very brief.
I assume it's
Yeah.
like a number of words. I mean, do you just ask them and they write something, or do you say what you want
Yes.
written?
Yeah, you just ask them and then they'll put it on.
Do you have to give them like the words?
Well, yeah, you can say, hey, but just want to let people know that we're going to be having a public forum on this and watch for a survey and public forum on blah, blah,
Okay.
blah.
All right.
I don't know how much content can actually go through it for school, if it scrolls, if it's just a thing. So maybe that's something we need to find out.
You want me to reach out to Karen and just ask her?
Probably not a bad idea.
All right. So I'll do that one and then I can like put together a sentence or based on her what she says. Ann?
On the signs, we may just want to focus on the forum if they're already promoting the survey. You know, it might be confusing to people to watch for
See it twice.
the ARPA survey and then they get something, watch for the ARPA in town survey. I don't know how people feel about that.
Do you think it would be confusing? You say watch for the ARPA survey in the town survey or something like that, or is that just too?
I don't know. I'll ask about the wording. I'll ask
Okay.
what they're doing.
Okay. So let's do that. So then we've got the three sort of pieces that we'd want to put out. We'll review them in the meeting next week. We'll review the survey and then we'll have those pieces ready to go at the end of next week's meeting. Does that make sense as our goals for next week?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think that feeds into next steps. So I think we just sort of discuss what we'll do next. So I'll have three pieces on the agenda for next week. I'll do the standing review of the proposals as they've come in, right? We'll do the survey review and we'll do the community outreach review. So those three things. Does that make sense? Okay. Good. I'm going to skip. I have here, we have to figure out our evaluation criteria. I'm going to say we skip that for now. We've only got 15 minutes. Let's get through the rest of the agenda items. Okay. Administrative business. So we have voting on the minutes from February 10th and sent them out yesterday. Have folks had a chance to review? Are we ready to vote on those? I'm good. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
For, what were the dates? February 10th and February 17th?
So I only put the 10th on the agenda. I forgot the 17th, so we can only do
Okay.
the 10th.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 10th, 2022 as written.
Second.
Just one thing.
Yep,
Did you
go
get
ahead.
my name correction?
Yes, I did get
Okay.
it. That was actually spell check went in and changed it.
Oh, of course.
It will be corrected on the final draft when I send it in tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to do a roll call. Ms. Rubenstein,
Aye.
Ms. Luttrell,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
and Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well, so the motion passes. Okay. I don't think we have any unfinished business to cover. So moving into new business, I have public comment. We have one attendee, so I will open it if there's any public comment. Okay. And we discussed the agenda for our next meeting. So again, 3 pieces: review of proposals, or just a review of the proposal log, discussion of the survey. So Anne will bring the sample survey questions, and then we will look at those 3 language for those 3 outreach pieces we want to do: the Might Southborough note, the direct mailer, and the transfer station sign. Good. All right. That is all I have on the agenda for today. Is there anything else anyone would like to circle back on, or do we want to go with a motion to adjourn?
I'd like the motion we adjourn.
Second.
All right, I will do a roll call. Ms. Rubenstein,
Aye.
Ms. Luttrell,
Aye.
Mr. Wood,
Aye.
and Mr. Palmer.
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. So the meeting is adjourned at 9:17.
Thanks,
I'm going to
everyone.
make a
Thanks, everyone.
public,
Thank you.
I'm going to make a public service announcement. If none of you people have tried Silver's Bakery, the Portuguese bakery in Hudson, my friend just brought over these little pastry things. So I'll admit that I was having them in my coffee milk when I'd blank out there. I had the best little custard things of my life.
What was it
Sorry.
called?
It's Silver's Bakery on Main Street. They have the best Portuguese rolls, and these, I'm gonna say it wrong. It's like casa de nal or something like that. It's these little custard pastries, and they have this vanilla bread that has custard on top of it.
Ooh.
It's why I'm overweight. But
Sounds
it's-
dangerous to me.
I just got it. A friend just dropped it off, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's having that with my coffee milk, and life is good." Just thought I'd
Is
share
it,
that.
is it across the street from the really good ice cream place?
It's not far down the street from the really good ice cream place, but it's right on Main Street. This stuff is so good.
Is it
Sorry,
near Medusa?
it's not too far from Medusa as well. Not too
Oh,
far
there's
from Ground Effect.
So many things you could get all in a row right there. Man, Hudson.
Hudson's great. So if you go to Ground Effects, which is a little brewery there, Kith and Kin has a food truck that goes in. They have duck fat fries. Again, we're wondering why I'm overweight and probably have hardening of the arteries. They have the best $5 fries you will ever get. Sorry. I'm done now.
Okay, John, I think you need to end with a food recommendation each week now. So we'll
Yes.
wait and see what you come back with next week.
Now I'm
This is the
hungry.
vanilla
Thanks
bread I
a
was
lot,
just
John.
talking about. See the custard. Oh my gosh. Oh, I can't wait.
Thank you,
That's my
John.
breakfast. Sorry. Anyway,
All
everybody,
right.
have a great night. Take care.
You too.
All
We'll
right,
see you
good
next
night.
week, everyone. All right. Bye.
Bye.